Hi, everybody, and welcome to the school committee meeting. We started a little early because we had an executive session prior to handle a grievance. We are going to go back into executive session at the end of this public meeting, not to return, but I'll go down our agenda. I want to remind people if they have comments, they're welcome to make it, and generally we can see them, and we will address questions as they come. But the first person on our agenda tonight is our student representative, Natalia Parkinson. So Natalia, welcome.
Thank you. So for my update today, I have an update from CPAC. So on November 16th at 6:30 p.m., Middleborough's Special Education Parent Advisory Council is co-hosting a virtual presentation on remote learning with the Federation for Children with Special Needs. Also, on Thursday, December 17th, CPAC will be hosting a paint night of everyone's favorite snowman, Olaf. Register at olaf.mcpac.org. The tickets are $10 each. All supplies needed for the virtual paint class are included in the ticket price. Registration closes on December 12th, and supply pickup is on December 15th in the front of MKG from 5 to 7 p.m. For the MEC's update, kids and staff at the MEC all continue to work hard and have fun. They hosted their first PTA meeting. With students in the MEC only being in the school for 1 to 2 years, the board is constantly changing. Last year's board is working with this year's new board to make the transition occur smoothly. For HBB's update, HBB was successful in concluding their event with Ted Murray, the inventor mentor. The remote students were able to take part in an amazing STEM-related presentation. They are planning a couple of days of fun activities called Get Moving HBB. The HBB PTA and the Box program are helping to arrange a day of fun outside activities for kids prior to Thanksgiving break. For the Nichols Middle School, NMS teachers did a great job organizing and planning for a virtual parent-teacher conferences. Overall, the conferences were well attended and they have received a lot of positive feedback. NMS students continue to show their school spirit on Tiger Tuesdays and Tiger Thursdays. The week of October 26th, they had a fun week. They went pink to support Breast Cancer Awareness Month and had fun dressing up for Halloween. As usual, the NMS staff were all in for a fun week. Intramurals for kickball and softball have just begun and will take place on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Student council meetings will be starting very soon under the direction of Mr. Finch and Ms. Schobel. They have a lot of great ideas to share with the student council members. These meetings will be held virtually each month. NMS School Council meeting will be Tuesday, November 17th. For MHS, the week of October 26th, MHS Student Council was successful in hosting the first Spirit Week of the year. All cohorts had great participation. Last Wednesday, November 4th, Student Council held their first virtual meeting with 80 participants. On Tuesday, November 11th, Cohort 2 participated in the Student Council's Make-A-Wish Minute, where students were able to donate cash and change to be donated to the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. Tomorrow, November 13th, Cohort 3 will be able to donate. GSA was successful in hosting their first meeting. Contact Mrs. Milani or Ash Barron if you are interested in joining. All fall sports teams have done well this past week while competing in the South Shore League tournament. Student Council is currently hosting a class versus class competition to see who can get the most donations for the St. Vincent de Paul Food Pantry. The bins to drop off your donations are in the main lobby. Thank you.
Have any questions for Natalia? Seeing no one, you got off easy tonight, Natalia. We appreciate you coming, and thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is reports from school committee members. So I'm going to go first, if no one minds, because I saw a question related to it. So I do want to address it. One of the things that disturbed me last week was the governor and the commissioner of education came out and said that kids should go to school full time. They said that without changing any of the guidelines that we have to operate schools under. That means no changes to transportation, no changes to space requirements, no changes to anything. I get where they're coming from. They are angry at people at school systems who have entirely gone remote, and that's their anger. But when they do stuff like that and have conversations like that, I think they throw off the entire state because they don't understand what they're talking about. We are adhering to and created a plan based on their guidelines that they established. So until the governor and the commissioner change the guidelines, then we can't change the structure of our school. We can't afford to transport all our students, and we can't transport them all in the buses at the same time. In addition, we can't put all our students in classrooms together at the same time because space requirements don't allow it. So one of the things that bothers me is when they come out and hold those press conferences that no one holds them accountable for what they've done in the past to say, have you changed anything or have you done anything? So until we get guidance that says things have changed, we have to adhere to the standards that we are currently at. So I do want to mention that because I think we all saw that the past weekend and people commenting and asking questions, and it just, it gave some parents some concern. It gave other parents some hope that their kids will be going full time, and we can't do that until the governor and the commissioner make the standards that they have and lessen them for us to do that. So that I open up to any other school committee members who has anything that they wish to ask. Mr. Stevens, go right ahead.
Yeah, I have the same opinion that you did, Rich, that that was not for us. I think that we're doing a good job with getting the kids into school as much as we can. We have the one cohort that's in full time for the special needs. We have majority of the kids are in the hybrid model, and we're giving parents the option for the remote model. So I think our model that that Mr. Lynch and the administration came up with, I think, is the best model we can have at this point in time. And I think what the question had over here was, are we exploring that? And I would say that I think that the administration is always evaluating the changes to whenever there's a change in either the state regulations or the what's going on in the community. I'd say we're always evaluating that. Is that correct, Mr. Lynch?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. We're always exploring that. But as the chair said, the problem with us is transportation and space within the building. If we're not allowed any changes in those ridership on buses, we're just 70 square miles and we just can't get all the kids to school at time unless we double the amount of tiers on the buses or double the buses, and that's just financially not feasible. But we have one of the most efficient models in place. I am sensitive to the needs of folks who have particular situations or have individual situations, but unfortunately, we have to go by the guidance that's currently out there. It's a little bit misleading, as on what Rich alluded to, when the governor and the commissioner come out and say we want these kids back in school, and they go on, and then they say at the end, when feasible. And that's the key phrase, when feasible. Right now, it's not feasible in Middleborough. It's simply not feasible. And until such time as the requirements are changed, it will not be feasible. So we'll have to wait until that time.
Thank you.
So now that I've ranted, any other school committee members have anything they wish to bring up on the Mr. Oakley?
Oh, I think you were about to say on the governor's press conference, but mine was mine was unrelated. You guys said all the things I would have said. Just in the reports from school committee members area, I just wanted to say, no matter who you voted for, I think we should all be proud of the massive voter turnout that we had in this past election. And I know I personally saw lines at the South Middleborough Fire Station and the Oak Point Clubhouse and the Council on Aging. And I just thought it was a really nice thing to see so many people turning out. And I hope maybe we can get some of that for the town elections coming up in the future.
Thank you, Rich. Anyone else have anything they wish to mention?
Mr. Chair, I think the number in Middleborough is either 73.5 or 74.5%.
Yeah, 73, just about, yeah, 73.5%.
That's for spring elections, we're usually between 11 and 17%, unless it's something really hot going on. So quite the difference.
That is true. Anybody else? Seeing no one, I will bring in the co-presidents of the MEA, Kate Lazarovich and Sam. And so welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will turn this over to you.
Okay.
I don't really have much of a new update from what's been happening in the past, other than the high school Q1 is ending on Tuesday, and the grades have to be in by next Friday. Report cards will be ready the following week. And that we had a really great day of PD last week that we all worked through and got a lot of stuff done. And we even got to have some PD with the co-founder of our Character Strong program, which was a pretty interesting PD that came out of that. Kate, what do you have?
Absolutely. Again, you know, we're just in the throes of it now, so there's not too much to report. This week, our parent-teacher conferences at the Henry B. Berkland and the Nichols Middle School occurring this week, and we're scheduling them a little differently this year. Parents can Google Meet with us or phone conference with us, and I've done both. I finished some just tonight. I met with almost all of my parents. There's just a handful that I'm going to be reaching out to through email to see if they, you know, would like to schedule another meeting. And since they didn't join me in this week, other things going on. I did want to point out that, you know, we are still doing some of the things that we always did in terms of we are hosting student interns in the building. I have an intern this year, a senior. Maggie DeRojas is my intern, and she comes into the building a couple days a week when my cohort is in. The Character Strong PD was really good. I wanted to thank the district for bringing in that and bringing it down to the elementary level as well. We're doing some of that a little differently than they do at the high school, but we're still learning about kindness and that sort of thing. I did want to tell people that, you know, the remote and the in-person learning, although it's very different, there is good learning going on in both situations. So getting the kids back in school isn't necessarily a better thing at this time. We are, you know, being careful and cautious, and like your school committee members said, that we can't transport them and we can't fit them in the buildings under the current guidelines. But I want to point out that, you know, even though the learning is very different in person and remotely, I do 50% of each. There's good learning going on in both places. And the differences, I think, are just making our kids more flexible. So that's all I had for this week. And let's keep up the good work of keeping our numbers good with COVID here in Middleborough. Pretty good.
Before you guys go, I think we should also point out, not only for the MEA, but thank Mr. Breen for the wonderful job that he did. Mr. Breen was, for the Middleborough Education Association, was running a GoFundMe piece in order to get gift cards for Middleborough families. They raised $2,600. And they're going to buy 52 gift cards from Hannaford's and 52 from Trucci's, so that families through the Family Support Center can get some Thanksgiving fun who need it. So we really appreciate that, and great job, and especially a big one to Mr. Breen. Kate, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up. That was on my notes, and I forgot to tell him. He did this out of the goodness of his heart. As a Middleborough Education Association member, he got the the whole group together. We are so thankful that he came up with this idea, and it's really going to make a nice difference for people. And we were just really impressed with how many donations we got. And thank you again for bringing that up, and thank you to Mr. Breen.
And Mr. Breen does a great job all the time, and time and time again, you can. The sad part is we don't get to hear Bill this fall doing football games, but hopefully we'll hear him in the spring. But he does an excellent job and really goes over and above for the families of Middleborough. So we want to thank him. Any questions for the? Go ahead, Mr. Oakley.
Thanks to you both, as always, for everything that you guys are doing. I was kind of curious. I have two quick questions. I think the first one is, obviously, you said grades are in a couple weeks. I think I heard you say this would be kind of anecdotal, but I'm just curious what your opinion is on how the student engagement feels to you, especially those students that are remote. And do you feel like you're seeing significant differences in student engagement and student performance, I guess, is really what I'm asking, over non-COVID times?
I'm cohort 2, so I do 50-50. And so my kids are in person half the time and remote half the time. And we just do different things when we're in person and when we're remote. And I actually feel that I get a little bit more engagement remotely, to be honest with you, because we are not spread out 6 feet apart. We're not masked. We can all hear each other. We can immediately see the reactions of our classmates, and we have, I think, better discussions remotely, honestly. And we have our technology, which the kids love to use technology. And when we're in person, we don't have technology at the elementary level because it's been spread out because they need it at home. And, until we get that, I think the engagement at school, it's a little harder to get because we can't hear each other. I think I've told you in the past, my kids are 60 feet apart. My person on one end of the room is literally 60 feet away from the person on the other end of the room. And that's far. So I spent a lot of time repeating what one student said so that everybody can hear. But engagement, I think these kids are flexible at my level, and we're doing, we're accomplishing a lot under these crazy circumstances. So I hope that answers your question. I think we're doing good by the kids. I really do. And Sam's in a different situation, so she could tell you from her perspective because she's fully remote.
Yeah, in the fully remote, I think it's the same. I think that there's some flexibility there. I think that it depends on the student. They all have different reasons on why them and their parents did not want to be in the building. So they chose the fully remote. So I think that there's a lot of good teaching, a lot of good learning going on out there. I think that the engagement depends on the student themselves, and a lot of it depends on what type of engagement they would have had probably in the building during normal times as well. So we're just trying to get all the learning and teaching happening out there in the remote world. It is more difficult. You're on the computer every day for all the classes. You don't get to meet them in class. But we're moving along. Definitely.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Seeing no one, thank you both for coming tonight. And if my plan goes later in the meeting, have a nice Thanksgiving, because I don't think we'll be seeing you before Thanksgiving.
Okay, we'll see you after. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Before I turn it over to Mr. Lynch, there were a couple things in the chat, so I do want to mention a couple things. First, somebody said about space issue, Massasoit. Massasoit is still using our building and renting our building, and so Massasoit is the renter of that building and has a lease on that property. The second piece is about the high school. The high school will be starting to be taken down and has to follow the guidelines that we have set in our already in our plan with the contractor. So there's pieces of that. It's not just taking down the physical building, it's the interiors that need to be gutted and taken out. So those two places aren't able to be used. So with that, Mr. Lynch, I'll turn it over to you for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members of the committee, good evening. We do have a special guest here who we can take out of order if possible.
Absolutely.
Melissa Oddi-Morrison is, I think, backstage and would like to talk about her pumpkin romp. If you hadn't noticed, or if you hadn't seen the front page of the Gazette this week, they raised approximately $1,937 that they'd like to donate to the Family Resource Center here in the Middleborough Public Schools. So, Melissa, thank you for all your efforts, and I'm going to hand the mic over to you, and you can sort of talk about what it was all about and how you met success, and maybe your plans for next year. Sure. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, we knew that this was going to be a little different for Halloween, didn't we? And I work with all the little kids, the MEC, and it was kind of sad to see that these kids were not going to get, our regular traditional Halloween. I myself get over 300 trick-or-treaters at my house. And also during this time, we see a lot of families struggling. Some people are losing their jobs. We have a lot of lunch programs that we help get free lunch, and we wonder what might happen for the evening. And it just got me thinking we could probably do two things at once. We could give them a happy childhood memory. It might not be the same as what we normally have, but something to give them a little happiness during the season. And so we decided to do something Halloween, which is my favorite holiday. So you get costumes, and we got people to say, what are you going to do with pumpkins here? We're going to make them into people, make them into characters, do something interesting with them, make a display, and we'll put you on a map. So we did that, and people donated like $10 to do this. We got 55 people beside myself to do it. And then people just started buying the map. It was something for them to do. And I got a lot of letters and notes saying, thank you for doing that. Even some students from our own school gave them something to do, and you could take more than a day to do it. Go around and see all the displays and vote at the end. So it was fun. You could do it at your leisure. And after that, myself and actually Kathy Schofield counted all these votes, took hours, and we came up with the winners. And we plan on doing it again next year because everyone had such a great time. So we're going to do that and maybe have T-shirts made, and so people can say they were pumpkin romping. And we'll do something local as well, because we feel that, to get back to our community is important. So it's a place we live and a place we bring up our kids and a place where I teach. So it's important to me. And that's really all I have to say.
No, we appreciate it. I mean, I think the big thing was it was something different and something fun to do over and above what was normally going to happen. And you guys did a fantastic job. You could drive around town and see everything that was going on. So really, thank you. I mean, anytime somebody steps up and does something different or something unusual, I hope it keeps going and I hope it lasts, because I know a lot of people who had fun with it. So I thank you for doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Melissa, thank you. And thank you to the donation to the Family Resource Center. It's sort of the heartbeat of a number of families in this region who really depend on the outreach that's provided through that organization. And this financial donation will certainly help with that. Also want to say that the money raised from the MEA, and Melissa's part of that too, is also going through the MEA to the Family Resource Center for disbursement amongst our families, our neediest families. So
great.
Any questions from the school committee?
Teresa, go right ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you, Melissa. I loved it. It was really great, and it was so fun for us to see all the great displays, and a lot of our friends were doing that. So I appreciated that. But I know you had mentioned maybe something for Christmas. I wondered if you wanted to maybe let people know that that's being talked about, because I know that that's going to be coming up quickly, and you might be looking for some more help, because this was quite the undertaking, and I'd hate to see you have to put so much by yourself there. I'd like to see you get some help. So
we're trying to make this one a little simpler just because it's so close, and literally I'm still picking up Halloween decorations off my lawn, and I still have thank you notes to write for sponsors, but I'm getting there. Well, people kept saying, can we do something for Christmas? And then, I felt bad, and I'm thinking, what can we do? But I was actually talking to my friend Don Barrio. We were talking about who we would fundraise from, but there is a really, really nice organization called the Wiley Network, and they help college students who don't have any support system. So either their parents are deceased or they're incarcerated, they don't have any, they're in foster care. So somehow on their own merit, they got to colleges, could be even MIT, they're there, but they have no one there to give them care packages or help them, bring their laundry to, or a place to even go after they're on spring break. In fact, COVID time has really been a hard time because they had to leave school and they were basically homeless. So they had to find shelter for all these students. And in fact, there are 5 at Mass Art where I went to school. So what we would do, this organization helps them pay rent to places, get them food, give them things they may need of support while they're going to school, so they feel like they can get through tests and exams and do everything they need to do and that they feel supported. So this organization does that. And so we figured with this, we call it the Holiday Lights for Hope. And people could give a gift card because there's specific places up in Boston, like Stop and Shop, Uber Eats, Star Market, different ones that are up that way, but they don't have those, money to buy things from those stores. So even Amazon. So we're going to have someone donate a gift card, and it can be, whatever donation they want. But I would say, at least $10. And we're trying to leave out the internet right now. I think my husband's kind of tired of being the IT guy right now. So, what I figured would make it easier for people, we have a slip. They're gonna put their name on it, their address, where they are, and put the gift card. They can flip it through my door slot at 48 School Street. We have another person who's a very good IT guy. I guess Keith Barad is going to make the map so it's more accessible and easier to move around. I'm not that IT person at all. So he's going to do that. We're going to get everybody together, and then we'll have people buy the map for $3 like we did for the other one, and then we'll give all the money and the gift cards to the network so they can give them to the students who are trying so hard to better themselves, without support. So I figured that might be a good place.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're
That's awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Oakley. I see you have your hand up.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for doing this. And I know you recruited your whole family and a whole bunch of other people to help. And thank you to all of them too. I had a lot of fun making the BurrowBot
It was
display.
so cool. You did a great job.
It was fun to make. But if I was doing my math right, does that mean that you sold over 350 maps?
I believe so. I didn't completely do the math. John will be doing that.
That's amazing.
But it was crazy because at first, when we first started, I was like, all right, please let someone do this so I don't feel like I started this thing and no one's in it. And then finally it started rolling. And then people, I was at school and I'd be like remote teaching and my phone would go off, beep, beep, a map. I go, this is crazy. Like every second, $8 is going on. Like, I couldn't even look at it because I was like, I don't even want to know. So at the end, we found out what it was. And I was like, wow, that's pretty exciting for this little thing. But it meant a lot. A lot of people were like, thank you for doing this. And there are even people who are have some sort of medical disability or something that they can't go out at all. And so they were able to ride around and enjoy part of Halloween, in a different way. And that meant a lot to know that people really enjoyed it. And we helped some people in the process.
Cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, then it comes back to me, Mr. Chair, and I would certainly like to provide the school committee with some latest updates with regard to COVID and how it's affecting the Middleborough Public Schools. First of all, as you know, a note went out last week, an email from me, indicating that we did have 2 positives that really have affected 2 individuals in 2 different schools, but it did affect 3 schools, and that's because of close contacts. And we had 16 individual students actually who were quarantined for a couple of weeks as a result of close contacts. We are still using the Massachusetts Department of Public Health and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education guidelines with regard to close contacts. The CDC came out with a slightly different definition, and until the Mass Department of Public Health gets clarification and works that out, it's not consistent with what the DEAS has done, the Department of Elementary Secondary Ed and Mass Department So we're keeping currently the close contact guidelines. And if it weren't for that, we'd have a number of other students who might be out as a result of that. So close contacts are determined throughout the building within 6 feet for 15 continuous minutes. And we've asked our principals are really good at identifying. We have seating charts for buses. We have seating charts for rooms. We have seating charts for cafeterias. So we try to know, as close to 100% exactly where every child is throughout the day, and making sure that we define close contacts accordingly. Secondly, a survey is out there now for parents who do want to change cohorts, and that is out there, and that it closes next Monday at 9 a.m. Trying to get an idea and trying to get an exact idea, actually, of who wants to change cohorts. It will change things around in some instances, in some schools, but we understand for the most part that given the circumstances, obviously we'd like to get every student back every day, but given the circumstances, that the current cohort system for certain families is working better. And like I said, I do understand that there are people who would love, and including myself as a parent, would love to have their children and their child back every single day in school. But that is not feasible at this point in the Middleborough Public Schools. And unfortunately, that's the situation we're in. I do want to continue that have been working with Jim Hutchinson and working to secure an order of air purifiers, which will be in every classroom throughout the district as we begin to close windows a little bit. And the baffles on our HVAC units are closed a little bit where the fresh air from the outside isn't coming in as much. Air circulation is vitally important. So we've ordered an air purifier for every classroom in the district. And it is our intention to submit for reimbursement through the CARES organization, through the Plymouth County COVID money. And we'll be looking for reimbursement through that. So those are our sort of major updates with regard to COVID. We as a district will continue to look at the guidelines that come out from the Department of Elementary Ed, from the advisories that come out from the Commissioner of Education. I'm on a weekly phone call with him and all the superintendents throughout the Commonwealth. I agree with the chair that discussion from the governor and the commissioner the other day was mainly intended for those families and those school systems that are sort of saying we're going fully remote, we're going fully remote, we're going fully remote. And I think that we do have a cohort system that works as well as any in the area. I did get a call from a neighboring school district wondering how ours worked, because they had heard from a couple of teachers that worked in that district how well ours was going under the circumstances. Again, under the circumstances. And I realize that everyone wishes the circumstances to be different. So that's my update on COVID-19. If any school committee members have any questions on that, I'd certainly answer anything.
Brian, can you give us a Chromebook update?
I can. The latest we know, Mr. Chair, through you, the latest we know is that according to Wally Computer, they're in the continental United States and we're awaiting delivery. So I'm not sure. I know that Melanie was reaching out, Dr. Gates was reaching out to them. I don't know if she has any of the latest updates. I didn't hear anything today. And Sean Siciliano's in my office and he's shaking his head, and he would know. So there are no current updates on that delivery, but we're trying to track that order as best as we can. And as soon as we get it, obviously those computers don't go directly out. They will be processed through, and they have to be, what's the word for
inventoried and onboarded?
Inventoried and onboarded. Thank you very much. Again, Sean in my office. So those are the things that have to happen, and then they'll go out hopefully to as many folks as we possibly can get them out to, and perhaps take back some of those pieces that are out there that may not be 100% at this point, with a newer model, if you will. So, and we'll come up with a plan for that. Well, there's already a plan in place for that. So,
anyone have any questions for Brian about from that piece? All right, Brian, I'll let you continue.
I'll continue on to the legislation to suspend the MCAS. I think this was something that the chair wanted under school committee discussion.
Yes, sir.
I certainly can keep it in here. I would, from my standpoint, and from what I've heard from the commissioner, is that MCAS is still on right now. And our ability to do MCAS will be limited by hybrid and limited by cohorts and all of those things. But the intention right now is to move ahead. Now, there have been changes, obviously, and there are changes already in Washington with Betsy DeVos, the current Secretary of Education, has stepped down. And so there has to be a state application to suspend MCAS at the local level or any state testing, whatever state it might be. And then there has to be legislation at the House of Representatives and the governor to make those changes in MCAS schedule. So it's an important accountability piece. We realize that. But under the circumstances, there's certainly an argument against. Certainly an argument for also. So that's currently where the governor and the commissioner stand. It needs federal approval and then state legislature and state legislation to make that move and be suspended again for another year. So, Mr. Chair, I don't know if you want to add anything onto that.
So if no one objects, I'm going to wait until we hit I put on the MASC delegate convention, so I have some stuff related to that. So if that's
Sure
okay.
thing.
This was in my piece, but somehow it got in the superintendent's piece. So we'll discuss that in a minute.
Right. And my final item tonight is the Middleborough High School building project. We had a meeting this evening, get a latest update on a number of areas. Good news that we had applied through Plymouth County to get some of the COVID related costs to the building project reimbursed. And we did get satisfactory approval on that. So that's a good thing, and that involves a good amount of money. By the end of the project, may end up being $250,000 to $300,000 or more. But it's also good for the project because now there's a safety officer who has been there for a while now, and every vehicle that enters the site the person goes through a screening and goes to work. We do have a couple of COVID positive workers on a drywall crew that were identified and have been identified, one initially, then a second. So that drywall crew has been pulled and will await positive or negative tests, to come back to work. So the workers are now working Saturdays. They worked yesterday. So we have the really hardworking Fontaine brothers and all of their group trying to put this high school together. We know that we've gone from now January 5th, according to today's meeting, to February 5th for handover, but we're still preparing for the February walk-in and occupation. So we're still on board for that, but these guys are really working hard. The staircase that goes in the rotunda was brought in last week, and that is put in place and welded into place, and that's ready to go. And the linoleum flooring will be done in the near future, and the gym floor will be done. The auditorium's being finished up. Most of the classroom spaces are done at this point. Furniture is going to be brought in starting next week. Truckloads of furniture will be brought into the C section of the building, which is the classroom section. We approved some big numbers in technology for the high school, including the about $250,000 for the television production room and area, and additional money for moving from building to building. And so there's a lot that happened. If you get a chance to look at that recording of the school building meeting tonight, there was a lot that was covered. So tune into that. So any questions on the high school building project? A lot going on. It's a very, very busy place. We continue to have, I sit on the construction meetings from 11 to 1 on every Thursday. Christy Murphy is right on point. She's I'll tell you what, she's dynamite, and she's really been somebody that's helped us out. David Warner is the landscape engineer, and he's been really great with making sure that things are planted when they're supposed to be planted, and things are mowed when they're supposed to be mowed. And if they're not, then he's keeping a record of it so that if things don't grow or things don't come back to life in the spring, they're replaced. And so we have a lot of people that are looking out for us, including those two superstars. So, it's good that we have those folks. Any questions on the Middleborough High School building project? Hearing none, I would turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So next item on our agenda is consent agenda, and Chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
For a second?
Second.
Second.
Discussion, just so everyone knows, the consent agenda just has to do with donation, pumpkin romps donation to the Family Resource Center, along with, the fundraisers for the schools. A lot of them are virtual, I believe. So I just want to make that clear. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We can go unanimous as long as there's
Aye.
nobody who votes no. Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous, so we can do it that way. So I want to get into, I'm going to go into the piece about the MCAS. Just so everyone knows that this past Saturday was the Mass Association of School Committees Delegate Assembly. I was the delegate. It was their annual meeting. It was the first time we had the meeting remotely. It's usually part of the convention that we attend. So as far as the resolutions, most of the resolutions passed. Resolution for state funding for COVID, the anti-racism resolution, the retention of Medicaid revenue, membership of a school committee member on the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, the equity for LGBTQ students and staff passed unanimously. There was bigger discussion on MCAS and high stakes testing, but that passed asking, the motion on the table for here was to call moratorium on all high stakes testing for 2021, so that schools could benefit from their time focused on direct instruction, and urge the legislation to enact a moratorium for the next 3 years. I would point out to everybody, first and foremost, as far as MCAS goes, MCAS has to change. The reason it has to change is because we did not take MCAS last year. Under the rules of the state, in order for a student to qualify as an Adams Scholar, they must have passed the MCAS at that level there in 10th grade. Anyone who passes MCAS after 10th grade is not eligible for an Adams Scholarship. So according to the rules as currently established, no 10th grader from last year who currently is a junior is eligible for an Adams Scholarship. So that's primarily one of the things that has to change about MCAS. So in relation to the MASC conversation, I know there is legislation in the State House. I will get those pieces for everyone to take a look at. I personally think that we as a board should take a stand on the MCAS piece, both as it relates to Adams Scholars and for MCAS altogether. So I wanted to have that initial conversation with everybody just to see where everybody was. And if you're fine with it, I'll bring up some information for our next meeting, so we can have a much broader discussion, if that makes sense. That work for people?
Yes.
Good. Okay. And then going down the rest of the list, the MASC voted resolution number 4, which was lowering voting age to 16 in municipal elections. To be clear, there are 2 cities in the state currently that allow voting at the age of 16 for municipal elections. That is Cambridge and Somerville. So that passed. That was the closest vote. It was 65-49. Resolution number 5 was to increase federal support for stimulus funding for K through 12 education. That passed. The other one that passed was attempts not to allow the U.S. Department of Education to direct public funding to private schools. The last resolution that did not pass was asking DESE to waive accountability requirements for attendance for 2021. The primary reason that it did not pass was there was a concern amongst a majority of the members that if there wasn't a conversation, if people were not going to be judged by their accountability for attending school, that some kids would fall through the cracks and some kids would not attend at all. So there was a lengthy discussion about that piece, and the majority voted that way. Those are the MCAS. That's the Mass Association of School Committees meeting. Does anyone have any questions about that piece? Mr. Oakley?
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks for going and reporting back to us. I wondered if you could maybe talk a little bit about the resolutions and what type of power those really have, and do we feel like if the MASC passes a resolution, especially like some of the ones that you mentioned that have some aim at state policy and stuff, is that kind of like some high-powered lobbying, basically, or? Yeah,
for the most part. I mean, I think the thing to remember is at the State House, the Mass Association of School Committees, is understood to be the voice of school committees at the State House. They have a lobbying arm. They have, we often partner with MASS, which is Mass Association of School Superintendents. We do, if you'll see, for their resolutions are similar to ours for the most part, and we try to do it. When we go to Day on the Hill, all the things that we've outlined for those who've attended that, those are the conversations that we have with legislators, is around the issues that we as a group have made a decision on that are important to us. And you all get the updates and the pieces of information from Mass Association of School Committees. So you'll often see they will let you know where a bill is and remind you that everyone's voted to support the bill. And so talk to your legislature about this piece of legislation because we believe it's important and sort of why they believe it's important. So I think that it's they have a strong voice on Beacon Hill, Rich, and I think everyone knows them. Everyone knows Glenn Kuchar, who's the director, and everyone knows our attorney who goes over these things, but it's a good voice and a good group.
That's great. Sounds like a lot of good stuff. Hopefully the state adopts some of that.
And I would also add too that not the current president who is just leaving to move in, the next president's lining up, but the previous president to her was just elected to the State House out in Western Mass. So again, there's a lot of people who served in the State House who served at one time or another on a school committee. So
great.
It's good. Other questions? Then with that, the next item on our agenda is our action item. It came from last time. It's the superintendent's contractual increase. As I mentioned to the board last time, we did the superintendent's evaluation. The superintendent's evaluation was very good. It fell in line. Being that it's good, we are obligated under the terms of his contract to offer him a raise. Under the terms of his contract, I believe the raise range goes from 2 to 3%. In the past, we have offered the superintendent a 3% raise based on similar numbers from his evaluation. So I set that up and I open it to discussion or if people wish to make a motion. Anybody?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Farley.
I would like to make a motion to approve a 3% raise based on previous raises and on the current evaluation for the superintendent.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion. I will say that I couldn't agree with you more, Mrs. Farley. The superintendent has done an excellent job, especially given the review he receives. I would point out to the community again, both he and the town manager are the only two people who get their review done in public. But it's part of the job, and they both know that when they sign up. The superintendent does a fantastic job, as seen by those who reviewed him. Anyone else wish to ask anything? Just one point of clarification before, and I just want to make sure it's the will of the committee. As in the past, given that we have obviously waited a little bit to do the superintendent's evaluation, we generally make the evaluation back to July 1st, which is the superintendent's, the beginning of the superintendent's calendar year. And I just want to make sure that I see everyone nodding, so I assume that's in alignment, and I will go with that. What I do from here, if you vote this tonight, I send a note to our accounting office by the morning and tell them that the superintendent has been approved by the school committee for that raise, and they add it to his salary. So any other questions or comments? Meg?
Nope, sorry. I just wanted to say that I think I agree with Teresa that this is kind of in line what we've done the past couple of times he's been evaluated, but just the leadership he's shown throughout everything with COVID and really getting all of the leaders within the district together to come up with, the best plan that we can given the circumstances. I think that alone speaks volumes to his abilities.
Absolutely. Other comments? Mr. Stevens?
Yes, I just want to apologize. I missed the last meeting. But I do wholeheartedly agree with everything that's been said. This year, I mean, I know how much Mr. Lynch and the other administrators went through to put this year together. And I will say also, as being on the negotiation committee, I am very impressed with the level of cooperation that he shows with us and with the teachers union. I mean, he really makes the process so much easier because he does such a great job.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Anybody else? I know Mr. Rowe had to leave because he's in the middle of parent-teachers conferences tonight. Any other questions? Then I'm going to do a roll call vote for this particular piece, given what it is. Mr. Oakley?
Aye.
Ms. Farley?
Aye.
Mr. Stevens?
Aye.
Ms. Janess? And the chair votes aye. So congratulations to the superintendent. The last piece of business that we have before us before we go back to executive session is our next meeting. So our next meeting is supposed to be on Thanksgiving. I didn't think anyone wanted to have a meeting on Thanksgiving. So what I am proposing to the committee is that we don't hold another meeting for November, but we hold a meeting the first and third Thursday of the month for December, because we'd run into the same thing on Christmas Eve. And again, as much as I like all of you, I don't think we're all meeting on Christmas Eve. So is that okay with everybody if we make the switch just for the month and then go back?
So first and third. Yeah, first and third for December.
Yep. Okay. With that, I will make that change and have it and put it on for our next meeting. So our next meeting then will be, just to make sure everyone knows, we will meet the 3rd, 12/3. With that, if there is nothing further, then we will end the public portion of our meeting and finish our executive session around contractual issues. Anything else anyone wishes to bring up? Other than we wish everybody out there a happy Thanksgiving for them and their family. And we look forward to seeing you all in December. So with that, thank you very much and good night, everybody.